This is CBC Vancouver News.
Drones and helicopter flying overhead and flying into the drainages.
5 days and counting. The search intensifies for a missing hiker on Burke Mountain. Plus,
I don't know why they closed it.
To take away another one of our supports is a crime.
Canada Post closes its only Chinatown location this week, while the community says it's losing so much more than a post office. And
when there's a lot of pedestrian and cycling traffic coming off the ferry there, it's chaos.
I think all involved recognize this is not an optimal situation.
locals say ferry traffic on Gabriola Island has become too dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists. What they want to see to make it safer.
Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. We begin in Coquitlam, where despite 5 days of searching, there is still no trace of Alfred Wong. It's believed he got lost while hiking on Burke Mountain last week. The 65-year-old was last seen Tuesday in his vehicle, a gray Chevrolet Cruze. Earlier this week, Coquitlam search and rescue teams searched all of the trails and then all of the drainages yesterday. And then today, crews zeroed in on one particular area.
We've had a dog team searching the area, and now we have ground teams doing a very detailed search under logs. We had several drones and helicopter flying overhead and flying into the drainages as well in order to see possibly things that the searchers couldn't and access areas that were inaccessible.
Wong is an Asian man, 5'3" tall and a slim build with balding gray hair. He was an avid hiker and likely had minimal gear with him. Search crews say this case underscores the importance of creating a trip plan before you head out. For the 6th time this year, Mission Memorial's ER is temporarily closed due to a doctor shortage. The hospital's emergency department shut its doors today at 5 p.m. It'll reopen at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Fraser Health says emergency-trained nurses will be there to provide basic care to walk-in patients, and anyone needing urgent care will be transferred to neighboring hospitals. The health authority also warns of longer wait times for non-emergencies because of high demand and low staffing. Over to the island, the mayor of North Cowichan is asking the province to turn the current Cowichan District Hospital into an addictions treatment and involuntary care facility once the new hospital opens.
My hope is that this is an area where the province may be willing to step up with some new investments. Premier Eby did announce funding for 2 new such facilities in Prince George and Surrey.
North Cowichan's new hospital is slated to open in 2027. The current hospital has 150 beds across several floors. The mayor there says it could be a space for people with severe mental health issues needing involuntary care. But the proposal is not sitting well with some in the community.
Need housing. We have street people. We have addicts. We want to help them. But the beds come first, not housing on this site. They favor mental health and addictions in here. That may be fine, but that is a fulsome conversation we want to have for the reuse of this site with everybody, not just council.
He has started a petition calling for more public consultation on what could be done with the site. That petition now has more than 6,000 signatures. BC's Ministry of Health says it is aware of council's proposal and will respond directly to the mayor. Well, the BC government, meanwhile, says it is ready to open a record number of shelter beds as the colder winter weather approaches. But housing advocates say it's not enough to move the needle on the root of the problem. The CBC's William Burr reports.
A warm bed when you have nowhere else to go. That's what this shelter run by Union Gospel Mission in the downtown East Side offers. These beds are among approximately 6,500 that are set to open across the province as winter approaches.
We continue to increase the number of beds we have. We know there's a need, and it's so critically important.
This year, the government is funding 7% more shelter spaces than last year, including some new temporary housing units with access to services such as laundry. This is a welcome addition, according to the director of a community association in the neighborhood, even if there are still not enough shelter spots, she says.
It's a start, but what we really need is more permanent housing. So if there's but at least for people to have a warm place to stay.
However, according to experts, more shelter space is not enough to break the vicious cycle of homelessness.
People don't move up that continuum from being homeless in an encampment to a shelter to social affordable housing because there's no social affordable housing available.
Meanwhile, this 20-year-old man recalls the stigma that people like him face and his desire for everyone to have not just a shelter, but a place to live.
A lot of the addicts out here are actually amazing people, and we deserve housing, we deserve places to live.
William Burr, CBC News, Vancouver.
Chinatown's only post office is set to shutter its doors this week. Canada Post says it's part of sweeping cost-saving measures, but community advocates argue the closure amounts to an accessibility barrier, and they're urging the federal government to step in. Our Janella Hamilton now with that story.
This Chinatown post office is closed for the weekend, but soon the doors will be locked for good. Canada Post says the location at Main and East Hastings in Vancouver will be one of a handful closing across the province as it restructures to save money.
I don't know why they close it. Should keep it, it's not many post office outlet around here.
Canada Post says the decision to close the location came after it and the business owners reached a mutual agreement. But community advocate Melody Ma is spearheading a petition to prevent its closure.
The petition has only been up for over a week and a half, and there's been over 1,000 people that have responded and signed on.
She says the post office serves low-income people, seniors, and migrants who rely on a physical location for income assistance checks and government documents.
The downtown east side in Chinatown isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. These are real people, real organizations that are in this neighborhood, and public services should remain publicly and physically accessible for those who need it the most.
The Chinatown post office is set to close on November 12th. When it does, Canada Post says people will have to go to the nearest post office about 650 meters away, while some mail is being redirected to Commercial Drive.
You take it past walking distance, people can't access the services that the government provides. So it's important that we keep local access.
Maggie Lord with the Carnegie Community Center says the closure would be devastating, making inequity and isolation worse in neighborhoods already facing displacement and gentrification.
To take away another one of our supports is a crime. I don't know if they've really looked at this neighborhood and seen how important it is.
They are calling on all levels of government to work together to find a solution that will keep the post office open, a lifeline for many in this community. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Vancouver.
It was an intricate overnight operation that shut down Highway 1, but the new pedestrian overpass in Burnaby is now in place. This time-lapse video shows the 400-ton steel structure being installed in the middle of the night. Construction crews hoisted the pre-built bridge above the highway between the Sprott and Gallardi exits. First, the median dividing the Trans-Canada had to be removed, and then massive computer-controlled platforms lifted and rotated the overpass into place. Now, it's also meant the complete closure of a 10-kilometer stretch of the number 1. That happened for nearly 12 hours overnight. Once this overpass opens next year, the bridge will provide a link to pedestrians and cyclists across the highway. Well, traffic chaos at the ferry terminal at Gabriola Island has brought safety issues to a head. It's prompted growing calls there for a new trail for pedestrians and cyclists coming to and from the island. As our Claire Palmer explains, residents say narrow roads and non-existent shoulders around the terminal are downright dangerous.
Every 40 minutes or so, a ferry arrives on Gabriola Island. With it comes a quick injection of drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians.
There's an intersection there which, as you can see, doesn't have a stop sign. When there's a lot of pedestrian and cycling traffic coming off the ferry there, it's chaos.
Stephen Earle is with the Gabriola Transportation Society, which is calling for a new 650-meter trail to help users share the road. They're hoping it can connect with an existing trail that leads through the village and improve the flow of traffic along with safety.
The roads are relatively narrow and very windy and up and down, and in some places there aren't shoulders at all, so pedestrians and cyclists are kind of stuck on the road. So we just want people to be careful of pedestrians and cyclists.
This is a really long-standing issue. I've lived on the island a few years now.
Regional Director Vanessa Craig says there's only so much the district can do. As a rural area, the roads are under provincial power.
All of our work has to be done in collaboration with MOTT, and I'm hoping that we can get MOTT and BC Ferries all together working with the RDN to create something that makes sense and is safer for this area, because I think all involved recognize this is not an optimal situation.
There's a need for them to be working together to get things done.
Earl says it's also about promoting non-car centric ways to get around the island.
And it's not just that. We're advocates for active transportation. We want to get people out of their cars, but if they don't feel safe, they won't. So we want to make the roads safer for pedestrians and cyclists.
The regional district says there's a plan in place for 2026, but there's still a long way to go before any major upgrades can begin. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Gabriola.
Well, to the Okanagan, and 2 years after dismal fruit crops and tricky economic conditions caused its collapse, BC Tree Fruits is back. As our Tiffany Goodwin explains, the organization has been reinvented with hopes of providing some stability to the area's tree fruit industry.
It's the sound of a new era at BC Tree Fruits as thousands of fresh apples make their way through the assembly line. BC Tree Fruits has been packaging and selling fruit for 90 years, and after nearly dissolving in 2024, it's back after being purchased by Wildstone Construction for $23 million.
So to see it reopening is a really good thing. We're really quite confident in the new owners of it.
Now, rather than a co-op, it'll be run as a for-profit packing and distribution hub available to growers across the region. Lana Popham, BC's Minister of Agriculture and Food, says the reopening of the high-tech plant is welcome news after back-to-back years of challenging conditions for Okanagan fruit growers.
It's just an incredible moment because this is a vote of confidence for our growers in BC, and it allows just another piece of infrastructure to make sure that our BC fruit tree industry remains strong.
That's what they're looking for is a reliable partner that can pack their fruit, pay them a good price for the fruit, and have reliability not just with storage but also with sales channels, and make sure ultimately that their fruit gets out to customers and retailers.
The reopening of the new plant also means more jobs for the town of Oliver. The plant rehired 30 people who previously worked under the co-op. Tiffany Goodwin, CBC News, Penticton.
After the break, an ex-Conservative MP details the confrontation he says was the final straw in his decision to cross the floor. All the politics are next. Stay with us. Welcome back. It has been a tumultuous week for the federal Conservatives. Another MP split from the party and joined the Liberals. And now the breakup has turned nasty with accusations on both sides. The CBC's JP Tasker with more from Ottawa.
After a warm reception from his new party, Nova Scotia MP Chris D'Entremont is speaking out about how he says he was treated by senior Conservatives.
What sealed the deal is when I got yelled at.
In his first broadcast interview since crossing the floor to the Liberals, D'Entremont says Conservative MPs Chris Warkentin and Andrew Scheer barged into his office. His assistant almost knocked over. When they heard he was considering joining Mark Carney's government, he says they proceeded to yell at him.
And, tell me how much of a snake I really was and turning my back on my constituents and the people that voted for me.
D'Entremont says his discontent had been brewing for some time over Pierre Poilievre's leadership style, which he describes as very negative.
Quite honestly, a lot of times I felt it was a part of a frat house rather than a serious political party. It wasn't about keeping government to account. It wasn't about trying to do the best for your constituents. It was about tearing down.
Poilievre's office is hitting back, alleging D'Entremont left the party because he didn't get a deputy speaker position. In a statement to CBC News, they called D'Entremont a liar, who is now spinning more lies after crossing the floor. He will fit in perfectly in the Liberal caucus. Hours later, the party sent out a detailed blow-by-blow of Scheer and Warkentin's version of events, disputing D'Entremont's description of the meeting, saying they entered the office calmly and spoke in a measured voice.
Mr. Carney was going to be the tight-fisted banker.
Poilievre hasn't spoken publicly about D'Entremont's departure or the abrupt resignation 2 days later of another Conservative MP, Matt Genereux, focusing instead on Carney's budget.
I feel sorry that we're in this situation, but I also think, we're only hearing part of the story from Chris.
Adam Chambers wasn't part of the alleged D'Entremont confrontation, but says these are tense times.
In the heat of a moment, you can understand how tensions would be very high when the government is on the precipice of getting a majority.
It's like high school. We see these guys showing up at his office. Like, come on.
This longtime political watcher says the Conservatives are in crisis and Poilievre's leadership is under threat.
No one should be intimidated. And so I think if that's the way that the Conservative Party handles things, no wonder people are crossing the floor.
D'Entremont says he isn't the only one feeling disaffected with Poilievre and his team. He says 3 or 4 more Conservatives were considering a switch to the Liberals. That would give the Prime Minister the seats he needs to form a majority government. The Liberals aren't saying much publicly, but sources say more defections are possible. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
To politics stateside, a deal may be taking shape to end the government shutdown. A stopgap funding bill is before the Senate, and it survived a preliminary procedural vote tonight. It comes with the Transportation Secretary warning that air travel could be drastically scaled back.
We had 81 staffing triggers throughout the national airspace yesterday. That means controllers weren't coming to work. To answer your question, it's only going to get worse. I look to the 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, you're going to see air travel be reduced to a trickle.
This was the 3rd day of mandated flight reductions. 2,100 flights were canceled, and a total cut of 10% is slated to be reached this Friday. 13,000 air traffic controllers are not being paid during the shutdown. Since it started, pilots have filed more than 500 reports of air traffic safety problems. Well, taking you overseas, the second typhoon in less than a week has made landfall in the Philippines. Wind gusts are hitting 230 kilometers an hour, and already 2 deaths are reported. The CBC's Lisa Xing has the latest.
As Super Typhoon Fengwang made landfall, almost 1 million people had already been evacuated to shelters. Some of our belongings are on our roof, says Christopher Sanchez. Whenever there's a typhoon, our place gets flooded and the waters can reach over our heads. This is already the 21st named storm to strike the Philippines this year. But this is so far the largest and terrifying to many. We're scared. I have my kids with me, and my husband is still out making a living, says Kristia Simon. At times, Typhoon Fengwang blanketed the entire country with fierce rain and winds gusting to more than 200 kilometers an hour.
Imagine the amount of damage it can cause in terms of like landslides somewhere in the northern portion of the country, the amount of storm surge that can cause in the eastern side of our country.
Residents have barely had time to recover from the devastation wrought by another storm less than a week ago, Typhoon Kalmegi. It brought downpours and flash flooding, killed at least 200, another 5 in Vietnam. That as the Philippines was already dealing with the aftermath of 2 earthquakes earlier this month.
For these families, it feels like the recovery never really began. And, you know, these communities are reeling from layered disasters.
We're getting ready, but this is starting to test our level of experience.
Government agencies, including the National Police, Armed Forces, and Coast Guard, say they're ready.
All major service commands and unified commands have been mobilized to assist in rescue, relief, and recovery operations.
Officials say the storm could affect more than 30 million people, including in the capital, Manila. After that, it's expected to head north, threatening Taiwan later this week. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
And 2 days ahead of Remembrance Day, Britain observed Remembrance Sunday. The main ceremony was held at the Cenotaph in London. King Charles led 2 minutes of silence. Joining him laying wreaths were Prince William and Prince Edward. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. 20 veterans of that conflict were in today's march past. You are looking at a live shot of Science World in the Georgia Viaduct. A stormy night on tap for the South Coast. We'll time out all that wind and rain with the full forecast coming up next. Stay with us.
Small businesses are facing extortion threats and violence. Families are afraid of their safety. As a pattern of targeted crime grows throughout our communities, your voice matters. Join us on November 13th at the Surrey Arts Centre for a special CBC News Town Hall, Extortion, Communities in Fear. It's totally free, but space is limited, so reserve your spot today by heading to cbc.ca/BC Community.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox. Join CBC's Michelle Elliott on November 12th for an unforgettable evening of storytelling, leadership, healing, and unity at the Better Not Bitter Summit. For tickets, visit betternotbitter.ca. And the Chutzpah Festival returns November 12th to 23rd with an exciting lineup of performances including dance, music, theater, and more. For tickets, visit chutzpahfestival.com.
Let's take a look at the 5-day forecast. We had a pretty nice weekend, except for a rather dramatic ending with all of that rain coming just tonight. Here's where we're at looking ahead. So we do have a bit of a reprieve from the current system come Monday. We should see some nice blue sky later in the day. Still a bit gusty, and tonight we're going to see a lot of rain, 20 to 30 millimeters for the Vancouver area. Up and down the south coast, lots of precipitation, gusty winds as well, up to 40 kilometers an hour. And then you can see as we move through the work week into Tuesday and Wednesday as well, the next system mainly aiming for the north coast, but we will get some showers off and on right through most of the region, at least in the lower mainland as well. Tonight, our overnight lows actually pretty warm. The overnight low average for this time of year for Vancouver is 3 degrees. So still quite warm, but again, those showers will continue in many areas through the province. In fact, tomorrow, again, we should see some clearing in many areas. So even though it looks like a chance of showers, it is just that, a chance of showers, more likely in the morning than in the afternoon is when we should see some clearing. And then let's look at the 5-day forecast. As we said, still in the double digits. The average high for this time of year is +9. So still just budging, pushing that average high, a little bit warmer than normal. But again, we still will see those showers, especially towards the end of the work week continue. And that is your late news for this Sunday, November 9th. For news anytime, anywhere, stream us online. You can always check out CBC Gem, or you can always find us on our website. We're at cbc.ca/BC. Your next local newscast is on the early edition. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Thank you so much for watching this weekend. Good night.